The worst blizzard in 20 years, chose the exact moment. Olivia Russo stepped into the Dawson family barn to check on their pregnant mare. And by the time she realized the danger, the snow had already sealed her inside with walls of white death that no amount of human determination could breach. She had been working as a stable hand for the Dawson Ranch just outside Tahlequah, Cherokee Nation, for the better part of a year now. Ever since her father's death left her with nothing but debts and the clothes on her back. It was December 1878, and the winter had been mild until this evening when the temperature dropped so fast the thermometer might as well have been in free fall. Olivia was 22 years old, strong from years of farm work. With dark auburn hair she kept in a practical braid and green eyes that held equal parts determination and wariness. Life had taught her to be cautious, but the mare, Stella, was close to foaling and someone needed to check on her before nightfall. The wind had picked up while Olivia was inside the barn examining Stella's condition. The mare was restless, pawing at the straw bedding and occasionally looking back at her swollen belly with large, worried eyes. Olivia had seen enough births to recognize the signs. This foal would be coming soon, perhaps tonight. When Olivia went to the barn door to head back to the main house, she found it would not budge. Snow had piled against it with such force and speed that the door was completely blocked. She tried the side door with the same result. Even the windows were covered, turning the barn into a cave lit only by the single lantern she had brought with her. Fear tried to claw its way up her throat, but Olivia pushed it down. Panic would not help. She had a lantern with enough oil for maybe 6 hours if she was careful. She had her heavy wool coat, though her fingers were already growing cold. The barn provided shelter from the wind, at least, and there was hay for insulation if she needed it. Then Stella let out a low, groaning sound that made Olivia's decision for her. The mare was lying down now, her breathing labored. The foal was coming whether they were ready or not. Olivia hung the lantern on a hook where it would provide the most light and went to the mare's side. She had assisted with births before, though never completely alone and never in circumstances like these. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency as she examined Stella, speaking in low, soothing tones. "Easy, girl, easy now. We're going to get through this together. You and me, we're tougher than any storm." The words were as much for herself as for the mare. Outside, the wind howled like a living thing, battering against the barn walls with fists of ice and fury. Inside, Olivia focused on the task before her. She found relatively clean rags in the tack room, along with a bucket she could fill with snow melted near the lantern for washing. It was not ideal, but nothing about this situation was ideal. The hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. Stella labored through contraction after contraction, and Olivia stayed by her side, monitoring the progress, offering what comfort she could. The temperature in the barn continued to drop despite the meager warmth from the lantern. Olivia wrapped herself in horse blankets between contractions, but she could see her breath forming clouds in the air. She thought about the Dawson family up at the main house. They would have noticed by now that she had not returned. Old Mr. Dawson and his sons would surely try to find her once the storm broke, but when would that be? The wind showed no signs of weakening, and the snow kept falling in sheets so thick it seemed like the sky itself was collapsing. Around what Olivia guessed was midnight, though she had no way to be certain, Stella's water broke. The foal was coming. Olivia positioned herself to help, her cold, numbed fingers working as gently as she could manage. She talked to Stella constantly, a steady stream of encouragement and reassurance. "That is it, girl. You are doing so well, just a little more. You are the bravest horse I have ever known." The foal's front hooves appeared first, a good sign, followed by the nose. Olivia helped guide the newborn as Stella pushed with everything she had. It was a difficult birth, made worse by the cold and the stress of the storm, but finally, the foal slipped free into the straw bedding. For a terrible moment, the tiny creature did not move. Olivia's heart seized in her chest. She grabbed a rag and began rubbing the foal vigorously, stimulating circulation, clearing the membranes from its nose and mouth. "Come on," she whispered fiercely. "Come on, little one. Breathe." And then, like a miracle, the foal gasped and drew in air. Its eyes opened, dark and wondering. It was a colt, perfectly formed, with a coat that would probably dry to a beautiful chestnut color. Olivia sat back on her heels, tears streaming down her face, though she was not entirely sure why. Relief, exhaustion, wonder, all mixed together. Stella was already turning to nuzzle her baby, making soft, nickering sounds. The colt tried to lift his head, instinct already driving him to stand, to nurse, to live. But Olivia's relief was short-lived. The cold was becoming dangerous now. The lantern was burning low, and she could feel the chill seeping into her bones. The newborn foal was wet and vulnerable. If he got too cold, he would die. Stella needed to clean him, needed to help him stand and nurse so he could gain strength, but the temperature was working against them. Olivia gathered more hay and piled it around Stella and the colt, creating a nest of insulation. She wrapped herself in every blanket and tarp she could find in the barn, huddling close to the horses for their body warmth. It was not much, but it was all she had. The wind continued its assault on the barn. Snow found its way through cracks in the walls, creating small drifts in the corners. Olivia kept moving, forcing herself to stay awake and active to fight off the dangerous lethargy that came with extreme cold. She checked on the colt every few minutes. He was trying to stand now, his long legs wobbling and uncertain beneath him. "That is it," Olivia encouraged, her voice hoarse from talking through the long night. "You can do it. Your mama needs you to be strong." The colt fell twice before he managed to get his legs under him properly. When he finally stood, swaying but upright, Olivia felt tears sting her eyes again. He found his way to Stella's side and began to nurse. The mare stood patiently, still exhausted from the birth but attentive to her baby. That was the first miracle, Olivia thought. A healthy colt born in the middle of the worst blizzard in memory, against all odds. The second miracle was still growing inside her, though she did not know it yet. Would not know it for certain for several more weeks, though she had her suspicions. The child she carried was the result of a single night 3 months ago. A mistake made with a traveling merchant who had promised her marriage and security, before disappearing with the dawn and her small savings. She had not told anyone, was not even entirely certain herself, though her body had been giving her signs she was trying to ignore. But that secret stayed buried beneath layers of more immediate concerns as Olivia fought to keep herself and the horses alive through the endless night. Dawn came slowly, the darkness giving way to a gray light that filtered through the snow-covered windows. The wind had finally died down, though the temperature remained brutally cold. Olivia's lantern had gone out hours ago, the oil finally exhausted. She was huddled in the hay next to Stella and the colt, drifting in and out of consciousness, her body reaching the limits of its endurance. She did not hear the sound of shoveling at first. It blended with the howling that still echoed in her ears from the storm. But then voices reached her, muffled but distinct. "The barn door is completely buried. We are going to have to dig her out. If she is even still alive in there, Lord have mercy, she has been trapped all night in this cold." Olivia tried to call out, but her voice came out as barely a whisper. She tried again, forcing air through her frozen lungs. "Here. I am here." She did not know if they heard her. She tried to move to get to the door, but her legs would not cooperate. The cold had stolen her strength. She could only lie there, watching the colt nurse, listening to the distant sounds of rescue. It took them nearly an hour to clear enough snow from the barn door to get it open. When light finally flooded into the dim interior, Olivia squinted against the brightness. Figures appeared in the doorway, dark shapes backlit by the white world outside. The first person through the door was not one of the Dawson boys as Olivia had expected. It was a man she had seen around town a few times, but had never spoken to. Quinton Vale was a cowboy who worked for one of the larger ranches south of Tahlequah, a tall man in his mid-20s with sandy brown hair and gray eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He was known for his skill with horses and his quiet, steady demeanor. Quinton had been riding through when the storm hit and had taken shelter with the Dawson family for the night. When morning came and they discovered Olivia was missing, he had volunteered to help with the search and rescue. His eyes adjusted to the dimness of the barn quickly, scanning the interior until he spotted Olivia lying in the hay. He crossed the distance between them in long strides, dropping to his knees beside her. "Miss Russo, can you hear me?" His voice was deep, concerned. Olivia managed a small nod. "The mare," she whispered. "The foal." Quinton's gaze shifted to Stella and the colt standing on wobbly legs beside his mother. His eyes widened slightly. "You delivered the foal." "In the middle of the storm, had no choice," Olivia managed. Her teeth were chattering so hard she could barely form words. "Is he all right, the colt?" Quinton looked at the newborn, then back at Olivia. Something shifted in his expression, a mixture of respect and wonder. "He looks perfect, and so does his mama. You did good, Miss Russo, real good. But we need to get you warm. Can you stand?" Olivia tried, but her legs gave out. Without hesitation, Quinton scooped her up into his arms. She was too cold and exhausted to protest. He carried her toward the door where Mr. Dawson and his eldest son stood waiting. "The mare foaled," Quinton told them. "Both are healthy. This woman is a miracle worker." Mr. Dawson, a weathered man in his 60s with kind eyes, shook his head in amazement. "Get her to the house. My wife will have hot water and blankets ready. Jackson, you stay here and make sure the mare and colt are settled. Fresh water and feed." Quinton carried Olivia through snow that came up past his knees in places. The world was transformed, every familiar landmark buried under white. The main house appeared through the glare like a blessing, smoke rising from its chimney promising warmth. Mrs. Dawson met them at the door, a small, efficient woman who took one look at Olivia and immediately began issuing orders. Quinton set Olivia down gently in a chair near the kitchen stove while Mrs. Dawson brought heated blankets and hot tea. "Drink this slowly," Mrs. Dawson instructed, wrapping Olivia in quilts. "Your fingers and toes, can you feel them?" Olivia nodded, though feeling was returning with painful prickles. She sipped the tea, letting the warmth spread through her chest. Quinton stood nearby, his hat in his hands, watching her with an expression she could not quite read. "You should get warm too," Olivia told him. "You were out in the cold searching." "I am fine," Quinton said. "I want to make sure you are all right first." Mrs. Dawson clucked her tongue. "Both of you need warming. Mr. Vale, sit yourself down and I will bring you tea as well. You are a hero for finding her so quickly." "She is the hero," Quinton corrected quietly. "Saving that mare and foal all alone in the dark and cold, that took real courage." Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the stove. "I just did what needed doing." "Most people would have panicked," Quinton said. "Or given up. You did not. That says something about your character." Their eyes met across the kitchen, and Olivia felt something pass between them, some wordless recognition. Then Mrs. Dawson was there with tea for Quinton, and the moment broke. The day passed in a blur of warmth and rest. The doctor was sent for as soon as the roads were passable, and he examined Olivia thoroughly. She had minor frostbite on a few fingers and toes, but nothing serious. She was incredibly lucky, he said. Another few hours in that cold and the story might have ended very differently. Olivia did not tell the doctor about her suspicions regarding her condition. That was something she needed to face on her own terms in her own time. By evening, she was feeling well enough to walk back out to the barn to check on Stella and the colt. Quinton appeared at her side as she was putting on her coat. "Mind if I walk with you?" he asked. "I would like to see how they are doing too." Olivia nodded, grateful for the company, though she was not sure why. They walked through the trampled snow to the barn together, not speaking but somehow comfortable in the silence. Inside, the barn was warm with fresh hay and the heat of the animals. Stella stood in her stall looking tired but content. The colt was asleep in the straw, his sides rising and falling with steady breaths. "He is beautiful," Quinton said softly. "What will you name him?" Olivia blinked. "I have no say in naming him. He belongs to the Dawsons. Mr. Dawson told me this afternoon that he is giving the colt to you. A thank you for saving his prize mare. Stella is his best breeding stock." Olivia stared at Quinton in shock. "He is giving me the colt. You earned him, more than earned him." Olivia looked at the sleeping foal, emotions welling up in her chest, a horse of her own. It was more than she had dreamed possible, more than she deserved, surely. "Miracle," she whispered. "I will call him Miracle." Quinton smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "That is a good name, fitting, given the circumstances." They stood together watching the horses for a while. Then Quinton cleared his throat. "Miss Russo, I hope this is not too forward, but I was wondering if I might call on you sometime. Properly, I mean, with courting intentions." Olivia's heart stuttered in her chest. Quinton was handsome, certainly, and he seemed kind. But she was carrying another man's child. She had nothing to offer a suitor but scandal and hardship. "Mr. Vale, I am flattered, truly, but I am not in a position to accept courtship right now." "Is there someone else?" "No, nothing like that. It is just complicated." Quinton studied her face for a long moment. "Complicated I can work with. I am a patient man, Miss Russo. I am not asking for an answer tonight. Just permission to visit you now and then, get to know you better. No pressure, no expectations." Olivia knew she should refuse outright. It was not fair to let him pursue something that could never work, but there was something in his eyes, a genuine warmth that made her hesitate. "I cannot make any promises," she said finally. "I am not asking for promises. Just a chance." Against her better judgment, Olivia found herself nodding. "All right. You may visit." The smile that lit Quinton's face was like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. "Thank you, Miss Russo. You will not regret it, I promise you that." But as Olivia lay in her small room in the workers' cottage that night, she wondered if she was making a terrible mistake. Quinton seemed like a good man, but good men did not deserve to be deceived. Eventually, she would start to show. Eventually, the truth would come out. And then what? She placed a hand on her still flat stomach, wondering about the life growing there. A child conceived in foolishness, without love or commitment. What kind of future could she give such a child? She had barely enough to support herself. The next few weeks passed in a strange mixture of routine and change. Olivia returned to her duties at the Dawson Ranch, caring for the horses and doing general barn work. Miracle grew stronger every day, his long legs becoming more coordinated, his coat gleaming with health. Olivia spent every spare moment with him, teaching him to accept a halter, to lead, to trust human touch, and Quinton visited. True to his word, he came by every few days, always respectful, always kind. He would help Olivia with her chores, working alongside her in companionable silence or engaging her in conversation about horses, about the ranch, about anything and everything. He never pushed for more than she was willing to give, never demanded answers to questions she was not ready to address. Olivia found herself looking forward to his visits more than she wanted to admit. Quinton had a quiet strength about him, a steadiness that was deeply appealing. He was good with the horses, patient and gentle, which spoke well of his character. And when he looked at her, it was with respect and genuine interest, not the calculating assessment she had grown used to from men who saw her only as an opportunity. But the secret she carried grew heavier with each passing day. By late January, she was certain. The morning sickness had started, though she managed to hide it by claiming a stomach ailment. Her clothes were still fitting, but she knew that would not last much longer. She needed to tell someone. The burden of the secret was becoming unbearable. But who? Mrs. Dawson was kind but traditional. She might not understand. She might insist Olivia leave the ranch to avoid scandal. In the end, it was Quinton who forced the issue, though not intentionally. He arrived one afternoon in early February to find Olivia in the barn, doubled over and retching into an empty stall. She had not heard him approach, and by the time she realized he was there, it was too late to hide. Quinton was at her side immediately, his hand on her back, concern etched in every line of his face. "Olivia, what is wrong? Should I fetch the doctor?" She shook her head, wiping her mouth with a handkerchief, mortified. "No, doctor, I am fine." "You are clearly not fine. How long have you been sick?" "A few weeks." "It is nothing." But Quinton was not stupid. She saw the moment realization dawned in his eyes, saw understanding replace confusion. He sat back on his heels, his expression carefully neutral. "Olivia, are you with child?" There was no point in lying. She nodded, unable to meet his eyes. The silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Olivia waited for him to leave, to walk away from the scandal and complication she represented. Instead, she heard him take a deep breath. "Who is the father?" "Someone who is not here. Someone who is not coming back." "Did he force you?" "No, I was foolish, but it was my choice." Another silence. Then Quinton spoke again, his voice very quiet. "Does anyone else know? Just you?" Quinton stood up, pacing a few steps away, running his hand through his hair. Olivia braced herself for the rejection she knew was coming. Instead, when he turned back to her, his face held determination. "Marry me." Olivia's head snapped up. "What? Marry me? I will claim the child as mine. No one needs to know the truth." "Quinton, you cannot be serious. Why would you do that?" He crossed back to her, kneeling down so they were eye to eye. "Because I care about you, Olivia. These past weeks, getting to know you, I have come to care a great deal. You are strong, kind, and braver than anyone I have ever met. You deserve better than to face this alone. You barely know me." "I know enough. I know you stayed calm in a crisis when most would have panicked. I know you have a gentle hand with animals and a fierce loyalty to those you care for. I know you work harder than any two men combined and never complain. That is enough for me." Olivia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "It is not fair to you. You deserve someone without complications, without scandal. I deserve someone I can respect and admire, someone I could come to love given time. That is you, Olivia. I am not asking out of pity. I am asking because I want to, because I think we could build something good together. And the baby will be my child in every way that matters. I will raise them as my own, love them as my own. No one ever needs to know differently." Olivia wanted to say yes so badly it hurt. But she had to be sure he understood what he was offering. People will talk. They will count months. Let them talk. We will say the child came early. It happens all the time. Your family. What will they think? My parents passed when I was young. I have a sister back east, but we are not close. There is no one whose opinion matters more than my own happiness. Olivia studied his face, searching for any sign of doubt or hesitation. She found only steady certainty. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this for me? Quinton reached out and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Because I have seen who you really are, and I like what I see. Because I think, given time, this could become something real between us. And because that child deserves a father who will love them, and I can be that person if you will let me. The kindness in his words broke something open inside Olivia. She had been carrying the weight of her mistake alone for so long, terrified of the future, certain she was destined for ruin. And here was this man, offering her a way forward, not just offering but doing it with genuine care and respect. I do not love you, she said honestly. Not yet. I care for you, I enjoy your company, but I cannot promise love. I am not asking for love right now. I am asking for a chance. Love can grow, Olivia. I have seen it happen. My parents married as strangers in an arranged match, and by the end they could not bear to be apart. Give us time. Give us a chance. Olivia closed her eyes, weighing her options. Alone, unmarried, with a child, she would be cast out of decent society. She would lose her position here. She and her baby would likely end up in poverty or worse. With Quinton, she would have security, respectability, and a partner who seemed genuinely willing to help her shoulder the burden. It was not love, not yet. But maybe it could be someday. And maybe that was enough. She opened her eyes and met Quinton's steady gaze. Yes, I will marry you. The relief that washed over his face was palpable. He took her hands in his, holding them gently. You will not regret this. I promise you, Olivia, I will do everything in my power to be a good husband to you and a good father to your child. Our child, Olivia corrected softly. If we are doing this, then the baby is ours, completely ours. Quinton's eyes grew bright. He lifted her hands to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. Our child. I like the sound of that. They were married a week later in a small ceremony at the church in Tahlequah. Mrs. Dawson was delighted by the news, claiming she had seen the attraction between them from the start. Mr. Dawson gave Olivia away, a gesture that touched her deeply. The Dawson family was the closest thing to family she had left. The speed of the wedding raised a few eyebrows in town, but Quinton had been right about one thing. People talked, but they also moved on to new gossip quickly enough. And as a married woman, Olivia's condition would be seen as a blessing rather than a scandal when it became apparent. Quinton had been saving his wages for years, and had enough to make a down payment on a small piece of land about 5 miles from the Dawson Ranch. The property came with a modest house, a barn in need of repair, and enough grazing land for a small herd. It was not much, but it was theirs. Olivia brought Miracle with her when she moved to their new home. The colt had become dear to her heart, a symbol of survival and hope. Quinton had 2 horses of his own, and they planned to build their herd slowly, breeding quality stock. The first few weeks of marriage were an adjustment. Quinton was true to his word about not pressuring Olivia. He treated her with unfailing courtesy and respect. They shared a bed because it would have looked strange not to, but he kept to his side and never pushed for intimacy beyond what Olivia was comfortable with. Slowly, gradually, they learned each other's rhythms and habits. Quinton rose early and made coffee. Olivia was terrible at cooking but excellent with animals. Quinton could fix anything but was hopeless at organization. They worked on the property together, repairing the barn, planning their future. And somewhere in the midst of the daily routines, affection began to grow. Quinton made Olivia laugh with dry observations about their stubborn milk cow. Olivia impressed Quinton with her ability to calm a spooked horse with just her voice. They talked in the evenings, sharing stories from their pasts, their hopes for the future. Olivia's pregnancy progressed. By late March, she was showing enough that they began telling people they were expecting. The reaction was uniformly positive. Mrs. Dawson was thrilled, already knitting baby blankets. The townspeople of Tahlequah offered congratulations and advice. Quinton was attentive without being overbearing. He made sure Olivia did not lift anything too heavy, insisted she rest when she grew tired. When her back ached, he would rub it gently. When she craved strange combinations of food, he would fetch them without complaint. One evening in early April, they were sitting on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Olivia was knitting a small cap, her hands moving in the automatic rhythm she had learned from Mrs. Dawson. Quinton was whittling a piece of wood into the rough shape of a horse. "Quinton," Olivia said quietly, "why are you doing all this, really?" He looked up from his carving. "What do you mean? You are being so kind, so patient. You are giving up your chance to find love with someone who could love you back without reservation." "Why?" Quinton set down his knife and wood, turning to face her fully. "Who says I am giving up my chance at love? I mean with someone who is not carrying another man's child. Someone without complications. Olivia." He reached over and took her hand. "I need you to understand something. I do not see this baby as a complication. I see them as our child, a gift we will raise together. And as for love, well, I think I am already halfway there." Olivia's breath caught. "What?" "I am falling in love with you. Have been for a while now, if I am being honest. The way you hum while you work. The way you always check on the horses before coming inside, even when you are exhausted. The way you scrunch up your nose when you are concentrating. All of it. I am falling for all of it." Tears sprang to Olivia's eyes. "Quinton, I do not know what to say." "You do not have to say anything. I am not asking for you to feel the same way. I am just telling you the truth. Whatever you feel or do not feel, I am committed to this marriage, to you, to our child. But I wanted you to know that for me, this is becoming real." Olivia squeezed his hand, her heart feeling too large for her chest. "It is becoming real for me too. I care about you so much. I do not know if it is love yet, but I think it might be getting close." The smile that spread across Quinton's face was like the sun coming out. He leaned over and kissed her forehead gently. "That is more than enough for now." That night, for the first time when they lay down in bed, Olivia moved closer to Quinton instead of keeping to her side. He wrapped an arm around her, pulling her against his chest, his hand resting protectively on her growing belly. "Good night, Olivia," he murmured into her hair. "Good night," she whispered back, feeling safer and more content than she had in a very long time. Spring turned the Cherokee Nation landscape into a riot of green and wildflowers. The property bloomed with possibility. Quinton worked on expanding the barn while Olivia tended to the garden and the horses. Miracle had grown into a strong, healthy young horse, already showing signs of the powerful build and steady temperament that would make him excellent breeding stock. Olivia's belly grew round and heavy. By May, she could feel the baby moving, little flutters and kicks that filled her with wonder and terror in equal measure. Quinton was fascinated by it, always asking permission before placing his hand on her stomach to feel the child move. One evening, after a particularly vigorous series of kicks, Quinton laughed in delight. "This one is going to be a handful." "You sound pleased about that." "I am. A quiet baby would be boring." Olivia smiled, placing her hand over his where it rested on her belly. "Are you scared?" About becoming a father, Quinton considered the question seriously. "Terrified, but in a good way, if that makes sense. I want to do right by this child, teach them everything I know, keep them safe. The responsibility is enormous, but I am ready for it. We are ready for it. We. That simple word encompassed so much. They were a unit now, a family. I think you are going to be a wonderful father, Olivia said softly. Quinton leaned in and kissed her, gentle and sweet. Over the past weeks, they had been gradually becoming more physically affectionate. Small kisses, embraces, touches that spoke of growing intimacy and trust. It felt natural, right? And you will be an amazing mother, Quinton replied. I have no doubts about that. June arrived with sweltering heat. Olivia grew uncomfortable in the warmth, her energy flagging. The baby pressed on her lungs and made breathing difficult. Quinton did everything he could to help, taking over more of the physical labor, making sure she stayed cool and hydrated. The doctor estimated the baby would come in mid to late July. Olivia found herself both eager for and dreading the event. She wanted to meet this child, to hold them and see their face. But childbirth was dangerous. Women died in labor all the time. What if something went wrong? Quinton seemed to sense her fear. One night in late June, as they lay in bed with the windows open to catch any hint of breeze, he spoke into the darkness. You are going to be fine, both of you. You cannot know that. I can have faith in it. You are the strongest woman I know, Olivia. You survived a blizzard alone in a barn and delivered a foal. You can do this. Olivia rolled to face him, or tried to. The logistics of movement were complicated with her belly in the way. Quinton helped her, arranging pillows for support. What if I am not strong enough? She whispered. What if something happens to me? You will be left alone with a baby that is not even yours. Quinton cupped her face in his hands, his expression fierce in the moonlight. That baby is mine in every way that counts, mine and yours, and nothing is going to happen to you. I will not allow it. Despite the impossibility of his promise, Olivia found comfort in it. She leaned into his touch, letting him support her. I love you, she said, the words spilling out before she could stop them. I did not mean to, I was not ready to, but I do. I love you, Quinton. His breath hitched. Then he was kissing her, deep and passionate, pouring everything he felt into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, his eyes were shining. I love you too, so much. You have no idea how much. They made love that night, careful and tender, celebrating the bond they had forged. Afterwards, wrapped in each other's arms, Olivia felt tears of joy slip down her cheeks. She had thought her life was over, ruined by one mistake. Instead, she had found something precious and real. She had found love. The baby came on a hot July afternoon. Olivia had been feeling restless all day, unable to settle to any task. When the first contraction hit, she was in the garden pulling weeds. She straightened up, one hand going to her belly, recognizing the sensation from stories other women had told her. Quinton was in the barn working on a new stall. Olivia made her way there slowly, pausing when another contraction rolled through her. Quinton, she called out. It is time. He appeared instantly, hay in his hair, eyes wide. The baby. Now. Yes, now, you need to fetch the midwife. They had arranged for Mrs. Patterson, an experienced midwife from Tahlequah, to attend the birth. Quinton helped Olivia into the house, getting her settled on the bed they had prepared with clean linens. Then he rode for town as fast as his horse could carry him. Alone in the house, Olivia focused on breathing through the contractions. They were coming regularly now, each one stronger than the last. She was not afraid. That surprised her. Perhaps it was because she had already survived one night that should have killed her. Perhaps it was because she trusted Quinton to return, to be there for her. Perhaps it was simply that she was ready to meet this child she had carried for so long. Mrs. Patterson arrived within the hour. A no-nonsense woman in her 50s, who had delivered half the babies in Cherokee Nation. She examined Olivia efficiently and declared that everything was progressing normally. "First babies usually take a while," she told Olivia. "Settle in for a long evening." But this baby apparently had other ideas. The labor progressed rapidly, each contraction bringing the child closer. Quinton stayed by Olivia's side, holding her hand, offering water and encouragement. Mrs. Patterson directed everything with calm competence. As the sun was setting, painting the room in golden light, Mrs. Patterson announced it was time to push. Olivia bore down, drawing on reserves of strength she did not know she possessed. Quinton supported her, his presence anchoring her, and then, with a final push and a rush of relief, the baby was born. A cry split the air, loud and indignant. Mrs. Patterson worked quickly, clearing the infant's airways, checking them over. "A boy," she announced with satisfaction. "Healthy and strong." She placed the baby on Olivia's chest, and Olivia looked down at her son for the first time. He was red and wrinkled and perfect. Dark hair plastered to his head, eyes squeezed shut as he wailed his displeasure at being thrust into the world. Quinton leaned over them both, his face full of wonder. "He is beautiful, absolutely beautiful." Olivia could not speak past the lump in her throat. She had carried this child in fear and shame for so long, but looking at him now, all she felt was overwhelming love. "Oliver," she said softly. "His name is Oliver." Quinton's eyes met hers, and she saw that he understood the significance. Oliver, starting with O like her own name. But the middle name would honor him. "Oliver Quinton Vale," Quinton said. "It is perfect." Mrs. Patterson finished her work, making sure both mother and baby were stable. She showed Olivia how to nurse, how to support the baby's head. Oliver latched on after a few tries, his tiny mouth working industriously. "You did wonderfully," Mrs. Patterson told Olivia. "I will come back tomorrow to check on you both, but everything looks good. You have a fine, healthy son." After the midwife left, Quinton and Olivia lay together in the bed, Oliver nestled between them. The baby had fallen asleep after nursing, his little face peaceful now. "He looks like you," Quinton said quietly. Olivia studied her son's features, trying to see the resemblance. She supposed there was something around the eyes. She was grateful he did not look like his biological father, that part of her past could stay buried. "He is ours," she said firmly. "Yours and mine." "Ours," Quinton agreed. He reached over and gently stroked Oliver's downy hair. "My son." The love in those two words brought fresh tears to Olivia's eyes. This was the second miracle, she realized. Not just the baby's safe arrival, but the family they had become. Against all odds, they had created something beautiful. The next months were a blur of sleepless nights and constant adjustment. Oliver was a hungry, fussy baby who demanded attention at all hours, but Quinton was true to his word about being a full partner in parenting. He walked the floor with Oliver when the baby would not sleep. He changed diapers without complaint. He marveled at every small milestone, every smile and coo. Watching Quinton with Oliver, Olivia fell even more deeply in love with her husband. He was patient and gentle, singing silly songs to make the baby laugh, staying up all night when Oliver was sick with colic. He was everything a father should be. The ranch prospered as well. Miracle had matured into a fine stallion, and they had begun breeding him to carefully selected mares. The quality of their stock was becoming known in the area. Quinton's reputation as a horseman brought buyers from as far as Texas. When Oliver was 6 months old, Olivia discovered she was pregnant again. This time the news brought only joy. She told Quinton on a crisp November evening, watching his face light up with delight. "Another baby," he breathed. "When? Early summer, I think." Quinton pulled her into his arms, careful not to jostle Oliver, who was sleeping on her shoulder. "I love you so much. You have given me everything I never knew I wanted." "You gave me a second chance at life," Olivia replied. "You gave me love when I deserved judgment. You gave our son a father. I am the one who should be grateful." "We are both lucky," Quinton said. "We found each other." The second baby, a girl they named Emma Rose, arrived in June of 1880. The birth was easier than Oliver's, and Emma was a calmer baby than her brother had been. Oliver, now almost a year old, was fascinated by his little sister, always wanting to touch her soft hair and tiny fingers under careful supervision. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The ranch continued to grow. They added a few cattle to their holdings, planted a larger garden, improved the house. Quinton built an addition with 2 bedrooms so the children could have their own spaces as they grew. Olivia had never imagined she could be this happy. Every morning she woke up grateful for the life she had built, for the man who loved her, for their children. The shame and fear of those early months felt like a distant dream. One evening in the fall of 1881, Olivia and Quinton sat on the porch watching Oliver chase fireflies in the yard. Emma was sleeping in her cradle nearby, and the air was sweet with the smell of hay and wood smoke. "Do you ever think about that night?" Quinton asked. "The blizzard," Olivia smiled. "Sometimes. It feels like a lifetime ago." "2 miracles happened that night," Quinton said. "The colt being born healthy and you surviving. But I think there was a third miracle too." "What was that?" "It brought you into my life. If that storm had not trapped you in the barn, if you had not saved that mare and foal, Mr. Dawson would not have given you miracle. I would not have been there when you were rescued. We might never have met, or if we had, it would have been different. Everything that followed came from that one night." Olivia considered this. It was true. The chain of events that led to their marriage, to their family, all traced back to those terrible, wonderful hours in the barn. "Then I am grateful for the storm," she said. As terrifying as it was, Quinton took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "Me too." Oliver came running up to the porch, his hands cupped carefully. "Papa, look, I caught one." Quinton leaned down to admire the firefly glowing between Oliver's small hands. "Well done. Now you have to let it go so it can get home to its family." Oliver opened his hands and the firefly flew off into the darkening sky. The boy watched it go with satisfaction, then climbed into Olivia's lap. "Tell me the story about Miracle again," he demanded. It had become Oliver's favorite bedtime story. The tale of how his mother had delivered a foal in a terrible blizzard, and how that foal had grown up to be the magnificent horse that now sired colts across the territory. Olivia began the familiar narrative, her voice soft in the gathering dusk. Quinton listened with a smile, having heard the story 100 times but never tiring of it. It was their family's foundation story, the thing that brought them together. Emma woke and began to fuss. Quinton lifted her from the cradle, holding her against his chest with practiced ease. She settled immediately, making small, contented sounds. Looking at her family, at this life they had built, Olivia felt her heart swell with contentment. She had been so lost and afraid once, certain she was ruined. But she had survived the storm, both literal and figurative. And she had emerged into something better than she could have imagined. The years continued to pass in measured contentment. The children grew, each with their own distinct personalities. Oliver was adventurous and bold, always climbing too high or running too fast, keeping his parents on constant alert. Emma was quieter, thoughtful, with a gift for gentling animals that rivaled her mother's. In 1883, Olivia gave birth to twins, 2 boys they named James and Samuel. The pregnancy had been difficult. and the birth exhausting, but both boys were healthy and strong. Quinton joked that they now had enough children to run a proper ranch operation. The property had indeed grown significantly. They had built up a respected breeding operation for horses, and their cattle herd numbered nearly 100 head. Quinton had hired 2 ranch hands to help with the work, young men from Tahlequah who were learning the trade. Olivia had also started taking in horses that others had given up on, animals that were considered too wild or too damaged to be useful. With patience and her natural gift, she would gentle them and train them, often selling them for good prices to buyers who appreciated their quality. It gave her deep satisfaction to take something broken and make it whole again. She understood better than most what it meant to be given a second chance. One spring day in 1885, a stranger rode up to the ranch. Olivia was in the corral working with a young mare, while the children played in the yard under the watchful eye of their housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, a Chinese woman who had come to Tahlequah seeking work and had become indispensable to the family. The stranger dismounted and approached the corral fence. He was a well-dressed man, perhaps in his late 30s, with the look of someone from back east. Something about him made Olivia uneasy, though she could not say why. "Can I help you?" she called out, keeping the mare between herself and the stranger. "I am looking for Olivia Russo," the man said. "I was told she works here." Olivia's blood ran cold. No one had called her by her maiden name in years. Everyone knew her as Olivia Vale. "Who is asking?" "My name is Marcus Webb. I am a lawyer from Boston. I have been searching for Miss Russo for quite some time on behalf of a client." Quinton appeared from the barn, his face set in hard lines. He had clearly heard the conversation. He walked to Olivia's side, placing himself slightly in front of her. "Olivia Russo does not exist anymore," Quinton said firmly. "There is only Olivia Vale, my wife. State your business." The lawyer looked between them, his expression neutral. "Very well. Mrs. Vale, then, I am here regarding the estate of your uncle, Theodore Russo." Olivia frowned. She had an uncle Theodore, her father's brother, but she had not seen him since she was a small child. He had gone east to seek his fortune and had never returned. "What about him?" "He passed away 6 months ago in Boston. He never married and had no children. You are his sole surviving relative, which makes you his heir." Olivia stared at the lawyer. "His heir?" "Yes. Your uncle was a successful merchant. His estate is worth approximately $50,000. The number was so enormous that Olivia could not process it. Quinton's hand found hers, gripping tight. "50,000, Quinton repeated slowly. "You are certain?" "Quite certain. I have been trying to locate Miss Russo, Mrs. Vale rather, for several months. It was not easy. She had moved several times and records were scarce, but I finally traced her here." Mr. Webb reached into his satchel and pulled out a stack of papers. "These are the legal documents. Once you sign them and they are properly witnessed and notarized, the money will be transferred to you. There is also a house in Boston, though I suspect you will choose to sell it rather than relocate." Olivia's mind was reeling. $50,000. It was more money than she had ever imagined having, more than she and Quinton could earn in several lifetimes of ranching. "I need to think about this," she said finally. The lawyer nodded. "Of course. I am staying at the hotel in Tahlequah. Take a few days to review the documents. When you are ready, come find me and we will finalize everything." After the lawyer left, Olivia and Quinton stood in stunned silence. The children, sensing something important was happening, had gone quiet in the yard. $50,000, Olivia whispered. "Quinton, that is impossible." "But apparently true." Quinton looked at the papers in his hands. "Olivia, do you know what this means? We could expand the ranch, buy more land. We could hire more help. We could make sure the children have the best education possible." We could also give it away, Olivia said slowly. There are people who need it more than we do. Quinton studied her face. You do not want the money. I do not know what I want. It feels strange. Uncle Theodore and I were never close. Why would he leave me everything? Perhaps because you were the only family he had left. Blood matters to some people. Olivia thought about that. Blood. Family. It was complicated. Oliver was not Quinton's by blood, but he was Quinton's son in every way that mattered. Emma, James, and Samuel were children of their love. Family was what you built, not just what you were born into. But $50,000. That kind of money could change everything. Over the next few days, Olivia and Quinton discussed the inheritance extensively. They prayed about it, seeking guidance. They talked to trusted friends, including the Dawsons, who were thrilled for them. In the end, they decided to accept the inheritance, but to use it wisely. They would expand the ranch modestly, enough to ensure a good living but not so much that they lost the life they had built. They would set aside money for the children's futures, for their education, and to help them start their own lives when the time came. And they would give generously to the church and to families in need in Tahlequah and the surrounding area. The house in Boston they sold immediately. Olivia had no desire to ever leave Cherokee Nation, the place that had become her true home. The inheritance brought changes, but not the kind that destroyed what they had built. If anything, it allowed them to deepen their commitments. They were able to build a small school on their property and hire a teacher, providing education not just for their own children, but for the children of their ranch hands and neighboring families, who could not easily get to the school in Tahlequah. Olivia used some of the money to create a fund for widows and single mothers, women who found themselves in circumstances similar to what she had once faced. The fund provided small grants to help them get on their feet, to start businesses or buy equipment or simply survive until they could find work. It was her way of paying forward the grace she had been shown. The years continued their steady march. The children grew and thrived. Oliver developed into a skilled horseman, learning everything his father could teach him. Emma showed an interest in medicine, spending hours with the local doctor whenever he would allow it, learning about healing. The twins were inseparable, always getting into mischief together, but with such good hearts that it was impossible to stay angry at them. In 1888, when Oliver was 10, he asked his parents about where babies came from. It was an innocent question, sparked by the birth of a neighbor's child. Olivia and Quinton looked at each other, a silent conversation passing between them. That night, after the younger children were in bed, they sat Oliver down for a serious talk. "You are old enough now to understand some things," Quinton began. "About our family, about how we became a family." Oliver listened with increasing fascination as his parents told him the story. How Olivia had been alone and frightened. How Quinton had offered to marry her and claim Oliver as his own. How love had grown between them until it became real and true. When they finished, Oliver was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Quinton with his serious dark eyes. "So you are not my real papa." "I am your real papa in every way that counts," Quinton said firmly. "I chose to be your father. I wanted to be your father from the moment you were born. Blood is not what makes a family. Love is." Oliver thought about this. "Do you know who my other papa is? The one who left before I was born?" "No," Olivia said honestly. "And I do not need to know. You have the father you need right here." Oliver nodded slowly. Then he threw his arms around Quinton's neck. "I am glad you chose to be my papa. You are the best papa anyone could have." Quinton held his son close, tears streaming down his face. "And you are the best son. I love you, Oliver, so much." "I love you too, Papa and Mama." Olivia joined the embrace, the three of them holding each other tight. This, she thought, this was what mattered, not blood, not the circumstances of birth. This love they had chosen and built together. When they finally broke apart, Oliver had one more question. Are you going to tell Emma and James and Samuel when they are old enough to understand? Olivia said. For now, this is something just between us, but Oliver, you are never to feel ashamed or different. You are our son, completely and totally. I know, Oliver said with the simple acceptance of childhood. I was just curious. The conversation changed things, but not in a bad way. If anything, Oliver seemed to grow closer to Quinton after that, understanding the depth of the commitment his father had made. In 1890, Miracle died. He had lived a long, productive life for a horse, siring dozens of foals that carried on his bloodline. When the old stallion finally laid down in his stall one morning and did not rise, Olivia wept as though she had lost a member of the family. In a way, she had. Miracle represented everything she had overcome, every impossible obstacle she had conquered. He had been with her through the worst and best moments of her life. They buried him on a hill overlooking the ranch with a simple marker. Oliver, now 12, spoke the words over his grave. Miracle was born on the worst night of Mama's life and became a symbol of hope. He was strong and brave and true. We will remember him always. The whole family stood together, heads bowed, remembering the horse that had brought them together. Life continued as it always did. Emma went off to study nursing when she was 18, attending a women's medical college in Kansas City. It was the first time one of their children had left home, and Olivia cried for a week, but she was proud too. Her daughter was brilliant and determined, and she would make a real difference in the world. Oliver stayed on the ranch, taking over more and more of the daily operations as Quinton's hair went gray and his joints began to ache. He married a local girl, Sarah Matthews, in 1895, and they built a house on the property near the main house. Their first child, a daughter they named Olivia after her grandmother, was born in 1896. The twins went into business together, starting a freight company that hauled goods between Tahlequah and the larger cities in Kansas and Texas. They were successful and happy, visiting the ranch often with stories of their adventures. Emma returned from her studies in 1898 and set up a small medical practice in Tahlequah. She never married, claiming her work was husband enough. She treated everyone regardless of their ability to pay and became beloved in the community. As the new century dawned, Olivia and Quinton found themselves surrounded by the life they had built. Grandchildren played in the yard where their own children had once played. The ranch was prosperous and well-run. They had friends, community, purpose. On a cool evening in October 1900, Olivia and Quinton sat on the porch as they had done 1,000 times before. They were both in their early 60s now, their hair gray, their faces lined with years. But when Quinton took Olivia's hand, she felt the same flutter in her heart that she had felt as a young bride. "You ever regret it?" Quinton asked. "Marrying me instead of waiting for something else?" Olivia turned to him in surprise. "Regret? Quinton, you gave me everything." "How could I possibly regret it? I just want to make sure you are happy, that you have been happy." "I have been happier than I ever imagined possible. You saved my life, Quinton, not just that first day, but every day since. You loved me when I could not love myself. You gave my son a father and gave me more children. You built this life with me. How could I want anything else?" Quinton smiled, that same gentle smile that had won her heart all those years ago. "I have been happy too, so happy. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Olivia Vale. And you are the best thing that ever happened to me." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the land they had worked and loved. Somewhere in the distance, a horse whinnied. Closer, they could hear the laughter of their grandchildren. "Two miracles happened that night in the blizzard," Olivia said softly. "But the real miracle was what came after, this life, this love." Quinton brought her hand to his lips and kissed it tenderly. "The miracle was you. It was always you." As darkness fell and the stars came out, they remained on the porch, holding hands, together as they had been for over 2 decades, and would be for whatever time they had left. They had faced storms, both literal and figurative, and had emerged stronger. They had built something lasting and true. And that, Olivia thought, was the greatest miracle of all. Not just survival, but thriving. Not just endurance, but joy. Not just living, but loving with everything you had. The story could have ended in tragedy. A young woman ruined, a child growing up fatherless, a life of hardship and shame. But instead, it had become something beautiful. Because one man had chosen kindness over judgment, because one woman had chosen to trust again, because both had chosen love. Years later, when Olivia was elderly and her memory began to fade, she would sometimes forget names or dates. But she never forgot the important things. She never forgot the night in the barn with Stella and the newborn colt. She never forgot Quinton's face when he first asked to court her. She never forgot the moment she realized she loved him, truly loved him, with all her heart. And she never forgot that sometimes the worst moments of our lives can lead to the best, if we are brave enough to accept the grace that is offered and wise enough to build something beautiful from the broken pieces. Quinton died peacefully in his sleep in 1912 at the age of 74, surrounded by his children and grandchildren. Olivia followed him 2 years later, her hand held by Oliver, the son who had started it all, the miracle baby who had brought 2 wounded souls together. They were buried side by side on the hill next to Miracle, overlooking the ranch that had been their life's work. Their children ensured the property stayed in the family, passing from generation to generation, a legacy of love that began with a blizzard and a choice to see possibility instead of ruin. And sometimes on quiet winter evenings when the snow fell soft and steady, visitors to the ranch swore they could hear the echo of a woman's voice, soothing and calm, speaking gentle words to a laboring mare, and the answering sound of a man's footsteps, hurrying to help, to save, to love. 2 miracles had happened that long ago night. A colt born healthy against all odds, a woman surviving what should have killed her. But the greatest miracle was still to come, in the form of a cowboy who saw worth where others saw shame, who chose love over convention, who built a family from courage and grace. That was the story Olivia and Quinton's descendants told, passing it down through the years. A reminder that redemption is always possible, that love can grow in the most unexpected places, and that the worst storms can lead to the brightest dawns. The Vale Ranch still stands today, worked by the great-great-grandchildren of Oliver and Sarah. They keep a picture in the main house of a young couple on their wedding day. The woman has auburn hair and determined green eyes. The man has sandy brown hair and a gentle smile. They are holding hands and looking at each other as if they are the only 2 people in the world. Beneath the picture is a small plaque that reads, "Quinton and Olivia Vale. 2 miracles happened in a blizzard, but the greatest miracle was their love. And every foal born on the ranch receives a blessing spoken over them, words passed down through generations. May you be strong like Miracle. May you be brave like Olivia. May you be kind like Quinton, and may you always remember that every life is precious, every soul deserves grace, and love is the greatest miracle of all." The story of that terrible, wonderful night in 1878 became legend in Cherokee Nation. the blizzard that trapped a young woman in a barn with a foaling mare, the cowboy who found them at dawn, the two miracles that happened a healthy colt and a surviving woman, and the third, greatest miracle that followed a love that transformed lives and echoed through generations. It was a story of redemption and second chances, of choosing hope over despair, of building beauty from ashes. It was a story that reminded everyone who heard it that our worst moments do not define us. What defines us is what we choose to do next, how we rise from the ruins, who we choose to become. Olivia had been a frightened girl facing ruin. She became a woman of strength and grace, a mother, a wife, a cornerstone of her community. Quinton had been a quiet cowboy with a kind heart. He became a husband who modeled what love could truly be, a father who showed that family is built on choice and commitment, not just biology. Together, they proved that happy endings are possible, even when the beginning seems impossibly dark. They proved that love, real love, is not about perfection or ideal circumstances. It is about showing up day after day, choosing each other, building something beautiful together. Their grandchildren would sit on their grandparents' knees and ask to hear the story again and again. And each time it was told, the message was the same: never give up, even when the storm seems endless. Help will come with the dawn. And sometimes the person who saves you becomes the person you were always meant to love. That was the legacy of Quinton and Olivia Vale. Not wealth, though they had prospered. Not fame, though their ranch was well known. Their legacy was love, fierce, enduring, transformative love that started with a choice to see the best in each other and never stopped choosing kindness, grace, and commitment. When the last of their children passed away in the 1960s, there was a reunion of the Vale family at the old ranch. Nearly 100 people came, descendants of Quinton and Olivia, all carrying the legacy of that long-ago night. They gathered on the hill where Quinton and Olivia were buried, where Miracle rested nearby. Someone had brought a newborn colt, barely a day old, from the current breeding stock. The colt was a descendant of Miracle, carrying on the bloodline. The oldest living descendant, Oliver's daughter Olivia, now in her 70s herself, spoke to the assembled family. "Our family began with a miracle," she said, her voice carrying across the hilltop. "Two miracles, really. And then a third, greatest miracle, the love between two people who chose each other every single day. Great-grandmother Olivia used to tell me that the blizzard was the worst and best night of her life. The worst because she nearly died. The best because it brought her to great-grandfather Quinton. They built this family on grace and love. That is what we must remember. That is what we must carry forward." The family stood together in the fading light, young and old, all connected by the courage of a woman who delivered a foal in a snowstorm and the kindness of a man who chose to love unconditionally. The colt stood on wobbly legs, a living symbol of the miracle that started everything. And if you listened carefully, in the whisper of the wind through the grass, you could almost hear it, the echo of a promise made over a century ago. A cowboy vowing to love and protect. A woman learning to trust again. Two hearts choosing each other against all odds. That was how their story ended. Not with tragedy, but with triumph. Not with shame, but with honor. Not with loneliness, but with love that multiplied across generations. Two miracles happened in a blizzard. A third miracle followed at dawn. And the greatest miracle of all was the love that grew from that impossible night. A love that proved redemption is always possible, and happy endings are real for those brave enough to believe in them.